I'm Douglas Estes, Associate Professor of Religion at New College of Florida.
And I'm Alicia Mercado Harvey, Assistant Professor of Spanish, Portuguese, and History at New College.
And I'm Stanley Fish, Presidential Scholar in Residence, I apologize for the title, at New College, Florida.
Welcome to the mighty Banyans on the Bay, to our viewers and listeners. And today we have a really special guest, Stanley Fish, who should not need any introduction, right? So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I guess I would like to ask you first, how did you come to New College?
Well, I came to New College very simply. I got a call one day from the president, President Corcoran, and the then provost, offering me a position. I think he was urged to do so by a member of the Board of Trustees, Mark Bauerlein, who was an old friend of mine. And at the time, I would have been just about 85. So I think to myself, I'm 85 and somebody is offering me a job. What do I do? Take it.
Well,
That's right.
fantastic. Our game.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit, as you reflect on your history in literary theory and literary criticism, what are some of the high points? Something, maybe a story that you'd like to share.
Well, literary theory emerged in France and Germany in the heightened form it then took in the 50s and 60s, and wasn't much known in the United States. I happened by accident to be spending 3 months in Paris in 1968 or 9, I forget exactly which year, and someone I had known before invited me to attend a weekly seminar where people talked about various new books that were coming out and exchanged views, and I did. And that was my introduction to the whole world of theory, and also, I guess, of modernism, postmodernism, post-structuralism, deconstruction. So it was extremely exhilarating. And I knew nothing about it before that 3-month sojourn in Paris. But I thought that when I come back to school, I'll just have to teach a course in this material, because that's what we academics always do. We teach a course in materials we haven't yet mastered, in the hope that we'll learn how to master them. So that's how my life with theory began, and I taught a course, I remember it, in which I just ran through the 8 or 9 or perhaps 10 reigning theoretical counts or paradigms that were then becoming well known. And since I was one of the few people in the country, the United States at that time, who knew anything about this material, I began to be invited to talk about it or to teach it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So you grew up in Providence, Rhode Island.
That's
in,
correct.
In the 50s. Do I have it right? The 50s?
I was born in 1938, data.
Yeah.
That amazes me. And I lived in Providence until I left to go to college when I was 17 or 18. So I was brought up, yes, in Providence.
Yeah. Do you have any interesting stories about Providence in the 50s?
Well, Providence in the 50s was I think, a typical New England decaying mill town. A lot of these towns, like Providence, Bridgeport, New Haven, once flourished largely through the textile industry, and in some cases through small machinery. But those enterprises went first to the south of the United States and then to other countries because of the labor problems, that is, the less expensive labor that you could obtain in those countries. And so the town, Providence, and New Haven too, because I went to school in New Haven, it was exactly the same, was left without an industrial base. There was still some people making costume jewelry. Providence used to be the heart of the costume jewelry world, but the other enterprises had more or less gone away, and all you had was urban decay, basically. So I grew up in urban decay. Of course, I didn't know it was urban decay.
Right.
It was just my, the life I grew up in. And I lived on a small, for most of my young years, I lived on a small street. I'd say lower middle class street, made up of two-level houses, one family living on the first floor, another living on the second floor. There was one detached freestanding house at the end of the block, and it was occupied by someone who was the head of the New England Mafia. Yes, Raymond Patriarca, one of the 12 Dons.
And he's dead now, so we don't have to worry, right?
That's right. He's not alive. And his wife and my mother were co-den mothers of our little Cub Scout troop. And the Patriarchas always were asking my parents to go on vacations with them. And my parents had to invent new reasons to say no. But it was a street of only a block long, maybe 15 or 17 houses on either side. And each of them contained young children my age. So I grew up where the street itself was a neighborhood, and everybody knew each other, and we all did things together and played sports, played cards, ran around, got into trouble. So it was kind of 1950s, as your question suggested, and seemed to me to be fine at the time.
Yeah.
Although not exciting as, let's say, New York or Chicago or San Francisco would have been exciting.
Sure.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your love of basketball.
Oh, that's simple. There was a guy across the street who had a basketball court or a basketball hoop attached to his garage, and I began to shoot baskets, and I really liked it, and I've liked it ever since. And I played the game and I still play the game today, and I'm no better than I was when I was 7 or 8 years old. I have there are occasional days when I actually remember what it is that I'm supposed to do when I'm on the court, and B, actually do it. But those days are about, once every 3 months or so. And of course, I then say to myself, next time, yes, I'll extend this success, but that never happens.
Right.
Do you have a favorite team?
Right now, I am blessed or cursed with the status of being a fan of the New York Knicks,
Okay,
and that's a roller coaster.
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. How about our team here? Have you been to any of the games?
I have not.
So tell us a little bit about what you're teaching at New
Well,
College
now I'm teaching 2 courses. One in the history of rhetoric, which begins with Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Quintilian, Longinus, and then moves into the late antiquity and the Middle Age period with people like Erasmus and Francis Bacon and a host of others. And finally, we're now in this class moving into the modern period where we, after discussing Thomas Hobbes, we've moved into the 19th and 20th century with Nietzsche, Richard Rorty, Derrida, Jürgen Habermas, and related types, trying to figure out what happens to the rhetorical tradition when it is no longer being taught as it was in the schools, as an obligatory and very familiar set of rules and codifications. Does it live on? In what form does it live on? And then the general thesis is that the triumph of rhetoric, the name of the final triumph of rhetoric, is postmodernism or deconstruction, depending on which you prefer. So that's the course. The other course I'm teaching, and I taught session of it today. It's a course in the films of the American West. And there I'm teaching the way in which these films not only depict the American West, but create the American West as most of us know it. But that's not only a phenomenon of the age of movie making, it was also a phenomenon in the 19th century, where people knew the American West largely through Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, in which Buffalo Bill, an actual historical character, and other actual historical characters joined with him to present a theatrical version of the lives that they had previously lived, and that theatrical version became the reality. What is it that the American West is? What were its values? Who were some of its important central characters? You learn this from the movies now, and previously you learned it from the Wild West shows. There's a line in one of the great westerns called "The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance," when in the course of the movie, the truth about something that had been a story that had been told for 30 years is revealed. But the editor who uncovers the truth refuses to publish it. He rips up his notes and he says, "This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend." So that's kind of the spirit of the course. And we study also the way in which the Western movies become their own subject after a while and become highly reflective, each Western paying homage to its successors in ways that can be detailed and understood in a cultural in a cultural form, and also the relationship of the Western myth to the general American myth of upstanding individuality, moving westward, the do something mentality, the distrust of abstractions, and the valorization of adventure.
Yeah. So I know that in your career you've had a chance to write a lot of books, and I know that all of them are important to you in some ways, but do you have a book or two that you're most proud of that you like the most?
Oh yeah, well I have one bestseller, so I have to like it.
Okay, right.
course.
Of
It helps pay the bills, and that's How to Write a Sentence.
Right.
Subtitle and How to Read One. And that came out in, I think, 2011. And I still get regular quarterly checks, like
Nice.
Nice.
15 years later. It's amazing. And that book was fun to write. And I think it did the job that I wanted it to do, which was to introduce readers to the absolutely marvelous mechanics of apparently simple sentences, which are not really that simple at all.
No.
And enough people have written to me or spoken to me in passing to tell me that, in fact, the book does work for them at that level. So that was a favorite book of mine. In terms of what I might pompously call the arc of my career, the most important book I published was a 1967 book called Surprised by Sin, The Reader in Paradise Lost, because that entirely changed and transformed Milton studies, which was a very long tradition of analysis and veneration of the 17th century English poet John Milton. And not only did it do that, not only did it set the agenda even till this very day for Milton studies, it provided a model for reader studies in general. That was called at the time reader response criticism. So that was a book that was both influential and, in terms of my own intellectual and career advancement, extremely important. When I was writing it, and in effect writing sloppy pages which my then first wife would type up while we were in London, and I was working at the British Museum, I told her, as she was doing this thankless task, "This book will make me famous." And it did.
Wow, she called it correctly. So, what do you think of the current state of academia?
I don't know. I've lost touch. Well, first of all, I had a long sojourn from about 2000 to just a few years ago in law schools. Before, I'd been teaching in both law school and humanities departments, but from about 1999 to 2025, 23 rather, I was teaching mostly in law school. So I lost touch with the Literary Academy. My sense is that it's more fragmented than it once was, that there's no there's no sharp divides which indicate that there are strongly situated positions on either side. Instead, my sense of it is a lot of people are doing different things, perhaps for smaller audiences, for audience of those scholars who are interested in that thing. In the heyday of theory, which you would in this country you would mark from about 67 to 85, perhaps a little earlier. But in the heyday of theory, everyone was talking about theory, either in an enthusiastic way or in a doomsday way. This is the end of everything. How did we ever get here? How can we get rid of this albatross? So there was a consistency given to the Literary Academy by what so many people were strongly for and what so many people were strongly against. I don't get the impression, perhaps you can tell me, that that's still the case today.
No, I would agree with you. I think it's much more fragmented today. Exactly.
You know, and I haven't written any. I wrote a couple of Milton pieces a few years back, but I haven't written any serious, extended literary criticism for at least 15 years and probably longer. My attention turned to theoretical matters, especially those focused on interpretation, both in literary studies and in legal studies. And then, at the same time, I began to think about theories, not theories, but accounts of the educational experience, what it was like, what was its history, what norms governed it, and how they came to be in place, how they could be challenged, perhaps changed. So I turned my attention to that area.
Yeah. Being as prolific as you are, what is the next book you're working on right now?
Well, I just finished a book.
Oh, you did? Okay, right.
It's now being looked at by presses. No press has yet jumped up and down and said yes, 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 but I have my hopes. It's a book on film noir.
Ooh.
Film noir is a very interesting American phenomenon which is much admired by the continental film world. In fact, film noir, the name was given to these movies by a French critic.
Yes.
And it flourished in its first and most influential stage between 1940 and 1958. Those are the usual years that are cited. It is a very dark in both content and in cinematography style of movie. Shadows, light, dim rooms, wet streets at night,
Yes.
Alleys, small apartments, and in these various spaces, people live out lives in which they are continually attempting to evade the awful contingency of modern life and failing. That's what film noir is all about. At the end of a film noir movie, or at least of a typical one, either everybody is dead, that often happens, or
Yes.
lots of people are dead, and the people who are left alive are so damaged in their souls that they might in fact be better off dead.
Right.
So it's not exactly what you'd call an upper. But for some reason, which I still haven't figured out, this is a question I raised in the last few pages of my book, but I haven't successfully, I believe, addressed it. Why then are we attracted, or are some of us attracted to these movies? What about them makes them still the object of admiration and considerable analysis? So then I wrote this book called You Live in a Dream, Waking Up to Nightmares in Film Noir.
Wow.
And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating,
Yeah,
you
for
know.
sure.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be a reader, you know. My thing is detective fiction, so I'll be
Yeah,
very
so y'all are close.
I know.
Well, yes and no, because
Okay.
but
It's different, yeah.
It's an interesting parallel because in detective fiction, puzzles are sometimes and often are solved. In detective fiction, one or two figures stand out as having evaded the general corruption
Right.
that informs society. And in detective fictions, there is a suggestion at the end that there is a life beyond. None of this is true
And yeah.
of film noir. Not that there aren't any detectives, and there are many policemen who typically become even more corrupt than the people that they're trying to prosecute or punish. There are many puzzles. Some of them are even solved, but they turn out to be absolutely irrelevant to what's going on. There's a film noir movie called Detour, made in 1945 in 3 weeks on a budget of $20,000, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's really, and it's spare and in a sense amateur and fits the genre. And the last line of that movie, spoken by the quote-unquote hero who gets slapped around by the world a million times, he says, "Fate can always put the finger on you or me for no reason at all." That's film noir.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a modern example, like for Gen Z, of film noir?
What's Gen Z, you mean?
Gen Z would be
The current generation.
Yeah, the current. So the 18, 19, 20
Yeah, our current students.
Yeah, current students.
Not that I know of. I mean, there are still noir-type movies being made. They're called neo-noirs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Things
There's
like,
neo noir.
Things
Yes.
like Chinatown
Yes.
or Body Heat.
Yes.
One about 5 or 6 years, 7 or 8 years ago called, what is it called? I forget the title of it, but it's a Jeff Bridges movie. Very dark, even though it's in Technicolor. But the film noir spirit, I think, is always ready to be revived. So I wouldn't be surprised if I were to see a new compelling film noir emerge.
Yeah. It seems like there's a whole current right now on different types of detective, fiction
Okay, yeah.
films, like the Knives Out. They're just kind of going back to
right,
the
yeah,
enigma,
okay,
but
yeah.
that's more like the enigma type.
Right.
And then you
Right.
have Hard Boil also. There's
Yeah,
a
sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
the Hard Boil. So there's different
Oh, yeah,
in neo noir. So there's a whole new group of
Okay.
movies that
My position, my definition of noir is somewhat strict. It's noir if a somewhat ordinary, even relatively innocent and good-natured person slips or slides into venal activity,
Yes.
and then worse, without barely knowing it.
Yes.
And any attempt on the part of this person to get back to what we might call the moral status quo ante leads to increasing disaster.
Yes.
So that's noir. That means that for my purposes, two films that are often mentioned as noirs are not. And they are The Maltese Falcon.
Yes.
It's not a noir. And Laura, Otto Preming's
That's Hard Boiled.
great-
Yeah. I mean, that's,
and Laura, Otto Preming's great movie is not a noir.
mm-hmm.
So it has to have this sense, as in that last line from the movie Detour, that there's no way out.
Right.
And
yeah.
that's often said in the
Mhm.
movies. There's no way out. That's the last line, for example, of a prison noir called Brute Force, starring Burt Lancaster and Hume Cronin, directed by Jules Dessin. There's no way out.
Mhm.
That's the noir message. There we are, trapped in a world that is either indifferent or hostile to us, and it doesn't matter which.
Right.
And the only thing you can do in noir, the only action that you can possibly take to avoid the worst of the noir fate is to hunker down and hide. You know, well, you can die. That's good. And many film noir anti-heroes fake their deaths and take on new identities in the hope
Well, like
that
talented Mr. Ripley.
yeah, they won't be found.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the heroine in Alfred Hitchcock's noir, The Wrong Man, who is committed to an asylum by her husband and the doctor, and finds that she wants to stay there. Even when her husband is cleared of the crime that made her so psychologically unstable, she wants to stay in the sanatorium because she knows that whatever it is that's looking to do her harm, the fates, the world, and so forth and so on, this is not a bad place to hide in an insane asylum.
Wow.
That's noir.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
maybe we should get on to a cheerier subject.
Right.
Yeah. Do we have one last question that would be cheery?
Well, let me ask you, thinking maybe with all your expertise on noir, maybe, teach a class?
Well, I have taught a class.
Oh.
You
That's-
did with the film. Oh, that's
That's
correct.
the only way I ever write anything.
Yes, that's right.
Everything I write comes out of teaching.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's what I did. I got the idea to teach the class. I don't know how I got it. Came to me one day when I was talking to Mary Beth when she was chairman of the humanities. I think I'll teach a course in noir. And then I did that and wrote a book.
And then comes the book. Oh.
That's right. That's coming.
Okay, how about this? What is the reason why students should study the humanities today?
All right. I've written a lot about this question.
Good.
And my answer is that there's no reason of the usual kind. That is, often this is put as a matter of justification. And that makes sense because all of any educational effort costs money. So the question is, why should the public, either in the form of state-supported institutions or in the form of private institutions funded in part by benefactors, why should any of these people care about the humanities to the extent of funding them? What is it that the humanities do for you? And my answer, and I gave this answer once in a couple of op-eds in the New York Times, where I used to be a Times columnist for about 18 years, and my answer is none whatsoever. That is the only reason to go into humanities department study is because you like it, because you like what it is that you do, either in the class or when you're out of class. You like thinking about the way books are constructed, or the way in which lines of poetry produce their impacts. And you like talking about a passage, either in a novel or in a poem, and trying to unpack the intricacies of its machinery. That's the pleasure for me. It's a pleasure of appreciation. Does it result, as some people have believed, in making you a better person? I've known too many faculty members in the humanities to believe that. If that were true, then people in philosophy, English, etc. departments would be the best-natured and most principled people in the world, and we know
That's not
not
true. Yes.
So another reason is that it will fit you for some kind of employment. I can't see why. I don't think it unfits you for employment, but it's no special key. Another reason with which I have some sympathy is that it puts you more or less in charge of a cultural tradition that other people are also invested in and knowledgeable about. And so if you've had a good humanities education and you've read widely, not only in English and American literature, but in the literature of other countries, you will have a better life, in the sense that you'll be able to make your way culturally and have interesting conversations with people you've never met before, because all of you have read the same books. That may have been the case 150 years ago. It's what the sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called habitus. But we don't live in that habitus anymore. There no longer is any social credit given because you're able to quote lines from King Lear. It just doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So you take that one away, and I'm back to my original answer. If you like doing the kind of thing you do in humanities classes, or reading the kinds of books you're introduced to in humanities classes, that's a good reason, and the only reason you will ever have.
Okay, well,
Okay.
with that note, we end the podcast. And to people who are interested in coming and taking a class with Stanley Fish, you can write directly to him, to his email, or any of us, and we'd be happy to give you information about this. So until next time, you all have a good week.